own company right now. So entrepreneurship and selling are the two, for me, are the two important courses that we are taking right now. Also, of course, beside the leadership, organizational leadership, but these two for me are the best courses right now, because really it builds my information on a professional basis, not trial and errors like what we used to do earlier.
Oh, that's great. That's great to hear that. Thank you for sharing that with the class as well,
You're
because
welcome.
I know that when I'm in school, when I was in school, when I was able to see what I was learning in action, that's what made it stick for me. Like, okay, this makes sense, and the knowledge just stayed with me. So good to hear that. All right, I'm going to log into my Teams on the web. There is always a plan B, and hopefully the desktop Teams will load up at some point, because we do need that for our rooms. So let me go to the calendar and join so that I'm able to share PowerPoint, you guys. And I'm joining. All right, let's see.
No sounds, bro.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and
Yes.
clear.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes.
Let's see. You can hear me. Okay, thank you. When my computer rebooted, it turned off the microphone. So, all right, let's take a look at the chat, see what's happening. All right, today's topic is going to be about human resources, which is very key in your entrepreneurial business. And one of the things that I mentioned early in the course is that we, as entrepreneurs and small business owners, we have to adopt the practices that make our larger counterparts successful. So a lot of times when you start a business, especially if you start like a home business or you have your family members working in it, a lot of times the tendency is to not be as formal with our practices as we would in a larger business. But it does help that you adopt those practices so that you can become successful and become a larger business if that's your intent. All right, so let me bring up the human resources. lecture. And I had mentioned last week, I sent a note out to you that the last two topics in the course is not really related to your business plan, so that you're able to kind of finalize your plan starting after next week. And then during our two sessions on those weeks, you can actually do some of your recordings if you like, to get that out the way. All right, let me log in. Today we're in week 10. We have 4 more to go after today. Where did the time go? Okay, so we'll bring this PowerPoint. Chapter 10. PowerPoint. So we celebrated St. Patrick's Day on Friday. Do you guys celebrate St. Patrick's Days? If you're not in North America, do you guys celebrate that day? St. Patrick's Day?
In Canada, some
No
are
one.
celebrating.
Judelyn, I think were you going to say something?
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you were or not. I didn't hear you. All right. Everything's slow today. So today's is a departure from all the numerical analysis and financial analysis we've been doing over the past 2 weeks. This is about the people component of running a business, managing a business. Is very important, very interesting, but also very challenging. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. You might hear some very scary winds in the background. Those are friendly ghosts. I live like the house is kind of like on a hill, so the wind whips around the house and makes these ghost sounds. It's very interesting when I'm speaking with customers and they hear that noise, like, what is that? What's going on there? Okay. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to move the screen so I can see you guys if you have questions. And we're here. Move this tab over here so I can see you guys. If you have any questions. Okay. All right. Can everyone see my screen? Chapter 10, Human Resource Management. Can you raise your hand or give me an audible yes?
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. All right, so all right, so in chapter 10, we're going to look at the different elements of human resources and discuss the process of hiring, which has gone through a transformation, especially since COVID and having to pivot to working remotely. The marketplace looks very different. The hiring practices look very different than they did prior to this whole virtual move. We're going to look at ways to retain employees. And as I mentioned to you before, your internal customers, which are your employees, are very important. A lot of companies make the mistake of focusing only on their external customers, the ones that are buying their goods and services. So it's important that you pay equal attention and prioritize your internal customers just as much as you do your external customers. So we're going to look at employee performance because you want to assess growth and how individuals are contributing to what your strategic goals are in the organization. This is especially challenging, as I said, if you have family members or if you have friends working for you. But remember that you put things on paper, put it in black and white. So there's less confusion. So you might need to terminate an employee over time for different reasons. We'll take a look at how that's handled. We're also going to look at the laws and regulations that govern employment practices, especially here in the US. We have several of them. And we have a lot of laws around treating people equally. For some reason, we can't seem to get that right. And then we're going to look at, as I mentioned, the different aspects of HR when you have, family members in your business. It does make it a little bit more challenging, but definitely is tenable. So what is human resources? It's the quantity and quality of effort directed towards your goods and services. As an entrepreneurial business, you are providing goods and services to the public. So you need human effort in many cases to make that a reality and to bring that to fruition. A lot of tasks are being automated. Technology is playing a really large role in how we conduct our businesses. However, there remains a human component that we need to address. So we're going to look at hiring, retaining, and dealing with difficult employees. So when you hire an employee, and let me just make a note here. In your business plan, you're going to have elements about human resources practices. I know that we identified the different shareholders, like the owners. Your team is actually the owners, but then you want to talk about how you're going to go about hiring individuals. In a lot of cases, when you start a business, you might have the owners perform certain tasks, but then as you start to grow or generate revenue, you look at hiring other people as well. So if you're hiring someone, and I think most of us here have been on either end of this human resource practices, you provide a job description. Again, this is in writing so that there's little or no confusion about what's being asked, especially if you're dealing with family members or friends. You advertise for the jobs. We'll talk about that more in a bit. You want to make sure you're not discriminating in your hiring practices. You want to conduct job interviews. You can conduct testing, and then you make the job offer. So that's kind of like the chronology of how you would hire an employee, what you do first, next, and so forth. Let's talk about employee retention. So to retain employees, obviously you need to have compensation to them, for them. And you also provide benefits. We'll look at those closely. What type of benefits that you're going to offer your employees. When you're starting, at the very least, you want to offer a salary to someone. You may not be able to offer benefits right away. However, you know, there should be a salary structure. We talked about that last time. So you want to decide whether it's a wage. That means you get a salary, every 2 weeks or every week, versus hourly rate, like $20 an hour or $100 an hour, so forth. And then you want to conduct performance reviews to make sure that what's stated in the job description and requirements are being met by your employees. Dealing with difficult employees, hopefully you don't encounter that a lot, but that entails performance management, where you're actually assessing what the goals are for them in terms of their job description and how are they meeting that goal and what remediation you need to put in place to help them to meet that goal. One of the things I said at the beginning was that usually when people say we have bad employees, they're not really bad employees. They're just not in the right position. So you find that you put this employee in a position that where they are challenged, where they have responsibility, where they are compensated fairly, and the right type of management, and you'll see them thrive. It'll be like a totally different person. So you want to look at that. It's not necessarily just because they're bad employees or they're not meeting the goals. It could be that they need to you need to restructure their responsibilities and so forth. And then of course there's termination. If things are not working out, then there should be a parting of ways, and there's a way to do that so you don't incur any legal issues. So here's why it's important to hire. If you have 1,000 employees, if you have an employee that's problematic, that's only 0.1% of your workforce. So it's not really affecting the workforce in a significant way. However, if you have a small firm and you only have 5 employees, one employee causing problems is about 20% of your workforce. So that's a pretty big hit on the workforce. So keep that in mind as you think about hiring and retaining employees. Again, that figure we just saw, a triple impact on the entrepreneurial firm, triple impact on it. Time is lost by the owner because now you got to figure out what to do with this employee. You're not getting the benefit from this employee in terms of contributions, and then it may affect other employees. Many of us have been in situations where we have an employee that might be disgruntled or may not be doing all they need to do, and they can impact the rest of the employees in the organization or in your division, your department. So it pervades that attitude or that how they are. It can rub off on other employees. So you need to assess early if there's going to be problems with that employee, and then have some steps in place to ensure that you can remediate the issue. And again, it could be as easy as a different job placement, or it might take some communication about understanding what their role is, and then providing the resources that they need to fulfill the role. What we noticed during COVID, and we're always going to reference COVID for many years to come, is that because we're working remotely and continue to work remotely, you're working in the same space as where you live. So you're not leaving your home to go to an office and maybe leaving some issues at home or putting them on hold. Everything is all in the same place. Everything everywhere all at once. So it becomes problematic, because you don't have a stress break. And what's happening with the HR function is that the entire employee is showing up to work. I'm showing up to work, working from home. My family's here. The children are here. Whatever issues are going on in the household, all that's coming to work in a different way than it has in the past. And the HR has to be able to manage that effectively. And because of the stress that we all went through during those couple of years, and still are, there's a psychological aspect to HR today, whereas a lot of companies are bolstering their psychological benefits, if you will, for their employees. And they can have, in this country, it's EAP, Employee Assistance Program, where you can go to counseling, and you and your family members and so forth. So we find that the HR is very different than it has been in the past, because again, the entire employee is showing up to work, sometimes with the babies on the screen and the cat tail across the screen as you are giving your presentation. And it's now become the norm to do that. You don't have to hide the kids or swat them away when they come in front of the camera. It's this is life. This is who I am, and not just what I do. So in the past, what you've seen is that when you come to work, it's really what you do. You are the accountant. This is what you do. I know you by Mr. Johnson. You're the accountant, and that's who you are. Now it's like Mr. Johnson has a family, has a sick pet, is moving, has some health crisis, and so forth. So there has to be a more intentional and intelligent aspect to HR moving forward. So here's just a I'm sorry, someone is asking for the meeting link in the chat. Ahmed, is Ahmed on yet? No? Okay. If someone's on their phone, because I would have to go back to my computer, can you, if you're on your phone, can you share the link in the WhatsApp with Ahmed? Can someone volunteer to do that for me? Any volunteers?
I request him, maybe it will.
I will share the link. No problem.
Thank you. Oh, Sarah just shared it. Thank you, Sarah. And it is the same link we use every week. We haven't changed that. So here are the hiring steps that we talked about earlier, but just in a picture format. The job description. So you create the description, and you decide what is required from this employee, and then you advertise for it. Then you interview the persons, you test them, and then you offer an engagement to the top candidate. So that's pretty much how it works. So in the job description, you want to document and describe the job, what you want to be done, because the importance of this is that this is what you'll use to assess the employee's performance. It's going to be assessed against what you asked them to do in the job description. All positions should have a description. So you, as officers of your entrepreneurial firm, officers, shareholders, you should have a job description as well. Ensure that every aspect of the job is considered, and this is shared with the potential employee, and it forces you to consider changes as the firm grows. So as you're growing and getting bigger and going to different, states or countries, the job descriptions will change accordingly. And if you have virtual employees where you're not having, usually when firms hire, they have a job orientation, and you come on site, and then you get to meet the HR person, etc. So you have that face to face. With virtual employees, since we're more virtual now more than ever, the job description has to be very clear for them, because the human component of you explaining things, and they're seeing you, and you're various expressions and so forth is not there. Interestingly enough, one of the aspects, I know we have a lot of new technology all the time. The metaverse is a place where the whole HR practice is going to be fully realized there, because you can actually interview in the metaverse. You can show up as a virtual representation of yourself, and it helps to exclude biases and discrimination, because you're not assessing individuals based on how they look, or how old they are, or what gender they are, or etc. You're assessing this virtual person. So you're really looking at what really is important for the job, and you're not being biased in your hiring practices. So there's going to be a space where we're going to see diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, and belonging really play out really well in that space. Let's check it to see if there are any messages. Okay. So when you're advertising for a job, you want to make sure you attract the largest pool of candidates. And because a lot of jobs are virtual, you have an even bigger pool. Before, when you hired, you'd hire somebody from your state or from your city or from your country. Now you can have talent that's represented globally. So you have a larger pool of qualified individuals that are applying for the job, which is great. So consider that, and when possible, you might want to consider virtualizing your job just to capture the best candidate. Because you might have a candidate that lives in, I live in Georgia. The best candidate might live over in Egypt or California or in Canada or someplace in Asia. So you want to make sure that you are getting the best possible candidate. However, you want to make sure that you understand hiring practices in the respective countries, because they might be different than yours. All right. So how do you promote your jobs at little or no cost? College placement offices. I had mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago about Handshake, and I think the school is looking into getting that stood up for students, so you can put your jobs out there for little or no cost. Professional associations. So if you belong to a professional association, a lot of times you'll see jobs being posted. The PMI, the Project Management Institute, they'll have jobs posted there. Employment agencies. Online, we see a lot of jobs on LinkedIn. And what's the other one called? What's another virtual job board? You guys? Besides LinkedIn, that's the one that kind of comes to mind. Can you think of another place where you can post jobs and you can see jobs?
Paid.com.
Ahmed, I see you lighting up and I can't hear you.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Let me see. It might be my settings.
We can hear you, Ahmed, but I don't know for
I see a lot
Prof.
of people lighting up. I don't hear anyone. Let me just check the settings. Okay. Can you say it again? Let's see if that helps.
Paid.com.
One more time.
Paid. B-A-Y-T.
BAYT.com. Okay. That's like a job board. Okay. Anyone else? Anyone know of another job board? You can either say it or you can write it in the chat.
There is also Monster Golf, Indeed.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. I was thinking of Indeed. Yes. Indeed. Monster, Upwork.
Monster Golf.
Yes. And what's the other one? Like Upwork. What's it called?
It's mostly like a platform for uh like digital different digital jobs.
Yes, because it's virtual, right? You can do it virtually. There's another Fiverr. There's Fiverr, which is like Upwork. Which brings me to this point. The talent landscape, of course, has transformed, and there's a lot of the gig economy. It's called the gig economy. Let me write this here, which is thriving because people are looking for gigs, and that's what you do on Fiverr and Upwork. It's like I need someone to create a logo, so I would go to one of these sites and procure someone's skills to do so. So it's not just 9 to 5 or traditionally what we've thought about, coming to work in the morning and leaving in the late afternoon. It's a gig economy. So people are working different hours, if you will, around the clock and so forth. So that has to be considered. Okay. So you could also do a help wanted ad. Remember that in the newspapers? Um, or job placement website. This is going to cost you. So you want to explore the no cost or the low cost options initially. But then if you're looking for, for example, if you're looking for an office in your company, you may not want to look on Upwork for that, right? And they do have recruiters that will take the guesswork out. They'll take over whatever your job description is, and they'll post it, and they'll vet prospective employees for you. So the ones that come to be interviewed are the best of the best. So that's what these recruiters do. So when you write an ad to advertise for this job, make sure you're concise and you're just talking about what's needed for applicants so that you can evaluate their qualifications. This is different from the responsibilities. You just want to be able to evaluate if they are the right fit. A lot of times companies will post responsibilities so that you get 2 for 1. Like I'm applying for the job, but I know exactly what I'm required to do. So they do that as well. Either way, there's no wrong way. Make it distinct so it will draw attention. That means that you want to call out certain things that might be top of mind or current, if you will. Be honest about your business and their capabilities. Don't oversell. I see that a lot in advertisements, and sometimes they'll advertise so much that they want you to do, and then they pay you so little. So it's very interesting. So you want to ask for a resume and a list of references, and establish a deadline for the application so that start and end. So you have that way to manage it effectively. All right, we talked about the regulations and the laws. So as I mentioned before, in our country, the Supreme Court has a say in how you treat human beings in your place of business. So discrimination is one of the things that we as a country deal with a lot, and I'm sure other countries do as well. So in terms of hiring people, dismissing them, pay levels, promotions in regards to race and color and gender and religious beliefs or national origin, the laws are there to protect those people so they're not discriminated against. In addition, when you write your job description, it shouldn't be in a discriminatory manner, such as looking for a salesman or handyman or young person or girl. So you're looking at a person as opposed to a man or a woman. There's certain jobs that I know still exist where it's gender specific. However, it's a hard sell to in this place of DEIA to make that case. All right. So when you do, when you advertise broadly and use a job description, all individuals are judged on the same basis. So it's good. So you're going to interview the individuals. Um, so you interview your top candidates because you've vetted them in terms of the resume, the references, and so forth. Again, age, race, disability, gender, national origin, religion, and so forth. You're not going to have any discussions in your interview about those topics. The interview should be based on the needs of the job. Are you able to fulfill the needs of the job? And again, be real about the state of the company. If you're a startup, we're just starting up. A lot of times you'll hear entrepreneurs say, we're just starting up. We're not able to offer you this salary, but in X amount of years or next year, when we start to grow, this is going to be provided. We're not able to provide you with benefits now, or maybe partial benefits, but we'll be able to provide it at a later date. So be honest and be real. If you're honest, you only got to do it once. If you lie, you got to do it more than once. So check as many references as possible. That's why you get references. If you ask for references, check the references, right? A lot of companies do background checks, especially when you have a very important role. And then they'll do second interview, third interviews. Sometimes you got to interview with the entire company and different departments and so forth, depending on your role. And you want to keep a record of how you advertised, who responded, and who you interviewed, because it might come up later where you got to show the progression of the hiring practice. Drug testing is very common in this country. However, we have states that have legalized marijuana, so they got tests for other drug components besides marijuana. Sometimes there'll be a simple math test or personality tests that they administer, again, to find out if you are the right fit for the organization, because the company is thinking about the employees that's already there and the culture that's already there, and they're vetting you to see if you're going to be a good fit for the culture. Then you extend an offer to the top candidate. And the candidate, if you're a candidate, you want to make sure that you always negotiate whatever is being offered. You do not accept the offer that's presented to you. So you always negotiate because you never know what they're holding back. And think about it, if you're a company and you're hiring and your top is let's say $100,000, that's your top. You might, say $90,000. Or the culture now is asking employers to reveal the salary along with the job requirements. We see that a lot on LinkedIn, where candidates are saying, listen, let us know what the salary is so we know if we want to pursue this or not. Don't have the salary the last thing that I find out about after I go through this whole employment process, if you will. So a lot of companies are being called upon to disclose their salary. It's very controversial because once you disclose the salary, you might have employees in the organization that may or may not be making that salary. And then there are questions that come up. So that's where that honesty comes in. It's always good to be honest because you want to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Like if you're hiring a programmer and you're paying them, I'm going to use 100,000 because it's a even number. It may not reflect what's in the market. You want to make sure that if you have a programmer in place, that they're making that amount. So they're not saying, why is this person getting paid more than me? Okay. All right. So negotiate. Once the offer is agreed upon, it should be put in writing, signed, and given to the candidate to sign it. Okay. So that's called an offer letter. Get an offer letter, and then you return it. All right. So we've got the hiring done. Now we got to figure out how to retain these employees. So the ones that perform well, you want to make sure you compensate them accordingly. So the benefits, are an issue, and reviewing performance. Performance reviews, very important. So compensation is making sure that, as I mentioned before, how do you justify paying two employees a different amount for the same job? Okay. So you want to make sure your compensation system is equitable now and in the future, so you don't have to revisit it and kind of patch it up later. Make sure it's equitable from the start, and then let that guide you going forward. Equity theory is how we see ourselves being treated in comparison to others in the organization. So that's alive and well. So you want to make sure that to keep your culture positive and thriving, that you're treating everyone equally. You're not paying women more than men, or this nationality more than the other, and so forth and so on. And then the opportunities are there for people to make the salary they want and to advance. And it's an equal opportunity there. That's why we have DEIA B in this country. I'm going to put this in the chat. B. Diversity, equity. Okay. Disability and belonging. So keep that in mind. How do you evaluate employees? You want to evaluate them periodically, even if they're family members, right? How do they perform relative to what their job description is? How do you plan to grow them through experience and training? You want to offer training to your employees so that they can advance and improve their skills. What are the objectives for the coming year? And what type of pay raise is going to be awarded? You may not do this at first because you're a smaller company, but there's HCM software, human capital management software, that a lot of companies have. Let me return to this in a sec. What is the legal strength of the job offer for both parties? Ashraf, could you explain more what you're asking here? I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay. I mean, what is the legal strength? I mean, if the company gives the job offer to a candidate, is it the right to draw it back or to stop this dealing? Also, on the other in the other case, if the candidate signed the job offer, after that he decided, he changed his mind and he decided not to join the company. Is it something mandatory? Is it something legal? It must be done.
It depends on how the job offer is written. In Georgia, we have what is a right to work state, so the employer can withdraw or terminate you for any reason whatsoever. But you have, within you can have that conversation when you are accepting an offer with an employer. Like, am I able to, if I accept this, am I able to withdraw my offer? You're under no, you don't have to work for someone you don't want to work for. So I don't think it's a contract in the way that other contracts are. To your point, it's just a retention type of agreement. It's more of an agreement than a contract, if you will. So it's not as stringent as a contract would be. Like, you have to work for us because you signed this. It's just an agreement.
Okay, my question, I mean, yeah, I understand that's they can terminate the employee after he joined. But my question, if the candidate he signed the job offer, maybe some probation period to resign from his old company, then he decided not to join. I mean, he didn't join the company yet.
Yeah, it's an agreement. It's not a contract. You can say, I changed my mind.
Yes. So it is not contract. It's just agreement.
No,
No legal.
It's not a contract, right? It's just saying we agree what we both are going to provide.
For both parties.
Yeah,
Okay, clear. Thank you.
you're welcome. Good question. So we have a human capital management, HCM software. Does any of you have that type of software in the companies that you work for? Where you can see your objectives for the new year. You could put in your time, what you want to take off. Your evaluation is in there. Anybody have that in their place of business currently?
Can you repeat again?
I put it in the chat. Human capital management is it's a software that helps you to manage your personnel. And I think I saw Sarah, you raised your hand that you had that in place. So it's a
Yes,
software.
we do.
Yes.
Yes, we do. We have one whereby you can log in and view and update even your key performance initiatives that you have for the year. You're able to add your leave days and be able to have all the updates, the courses, they're all there.
Yes. Excellent. And Noran, you said you did as well? Saw your hand up.
Yes, we have a similar system.
Okay, excellent. So yeah, that is a pretty big investment. Usually it's middle-sized businesses, and they have smaller versions for small businesses. Let me be clear, but it helps you to manage everything clean in a very clean manner and an effective manner. So you want to do your evaluation, performance plans for employee growth and training, objectives for the next year, and pay raises being awarded. So this is a compensation here. You got hourly wage, salary, commission, or both, right? Does anyone here work on commission where you get, and that would be mostly sales. You get a X% based on what you sell. Anybody work on commission here?
Yes, in our corporation, sales work with the salary and commission as well.
Okay, you want to talk about what that looks like?
Almost 1%.
One person, okay.
Yeah.
All right. You can also have profit sharing. We saw that, we mentioned that before, where, at the end of the year, you distribute your dividends to individuals. And then there are bonuses where you offer someone a bonus based on their performance. Okay. Has anyone gotten a bonus this year from their job? Any bonuses here?
We are in trouble.
Yes,
Usually.
I have here.
You said you're in trouble?
Yeah. For me, we are in trouble.
Okay.
So for us, we get promises.
What's that?
We get promises for bonus.
Oh, promises, but not bonuses. Okay. Well, hopefully you get your bonus. I hope that you do. So we have legal, again, issues with pay, fair labor standards. So there has to be a minimum wage for workers, and if they work overtime, they get overtime pay. And a lot of times in this country, we have unions. Do you guys have unions where you are? That protects workers?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so we have those in play. And we also have like child labor laws, like children shouldn't be working and so forth. So equal pay, etc. Here are some benefits.
When we say, sorry for interruption.
Go ahead.
When we say living wage, this is not the salary, or this is the salary?
Yeah, whatever you pay them is the wage. Yeah.
So wage means the salary, either it is by hourly
both.
rate or by
It-
monthly price.
It's the same. In this case, it's the same. It's whatever you pay them should be what you should be able to live on to stay out of poverty, whether it's a salary or a wage. So maybe they should use something different earlier. So the wage is what you're getting paid, whether it's salary or hourly. Okay, so wage is like, you know, $5,000 a month or $20 an hour. They're both wages.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. All right, let's see, any question? Equal pay, of course, you gotta not discriminate. So some benefits include paid vacations and holidays, the 401k, where you can contribute to your retirement, medical care, retirement plan, sick leave, and life insurance. These are standard benefits that companies offer their employees. Does this look familiar to everyone? Is there anything different here that you may not receive at your company?
What is 401k plan? We don't have like this.
It's a retirement plan. The company sometimes they will pay X amount of your retirement, and then you can contribute to it. There's a way for you to contribute to your retirement, and then they'll match it. So you might say, I'm going to contribute 10% of my wages from my paycheck towards retirement, and then the company might say, we'll match your 10%, and we'll put that in as well.
So what is the difference between 401 plan and the retirement plan?
This is where you're
Because it's
contributing.
written here.
You're contributing, and this is where, because you don't have to contribute. The company you could just take what the company gives you. Yeah.
The retirement plan, I don't have to pay, but the 401 plan, I have to pay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I think this is the basic here also in Canada.
Okay. Yeah, this is standard, right? So, you know, these benefits can be very expensive for you as a small business, so keep that in mind. Especially health insurance in this country. Health insurance is very, very important. Medical bills are very, very high. So this is what we're talking about. They can contribute to your retirement. And the main thing is a tax-free basis, so there's not tax when you contribute to your retirement. So this explains the 401k. So we all been hopefully on one end of the performance review, where you're getting reviewed over a certain period of time. And workers are motivated by more than salary. It's more than the money. It's actually, you know, recognition. Am I being challenged? Do I have support? And so forth. And you've got to communicate exactly how their performance is compared to what you're expecting. And then setting goals. That's where the HCM comes in. You can set in those key performance indicators in the HCM software. All right, so when someone's struggling, again, we talked about that, ways to help them out. And then in order to replace an employee, it's very expensive. It's like 1/5 of an employee's salary to replace them. So you want to invest in making them better if you can. If you can. So here's how you manage and when you look at performance management and termination for your employees. If you're going to let someone go, make sure you have well-documented reasons. They should be provided with the opportunity for improvement. And this non-compete agreement, we see that a lot, especially in technology, or NDA, non-disclosure agreement, so that they cannot work for your competition or something like that. So keep those in mind. These are agreements that are sometimes enforceable. Has anyone been required to sign an NDA for your job? or non-compete
To
agreement?
sign what? To sign what?
An NDA,
What is NBA?
non-disclosure agreement. Non-disclosure agreement, NDA.
Yes, yes.
Yes, we are signing that in the work here.
Okay, so we're familiar with that. Okay, good. I see some yeses. Okay, yeah. So here's some regulations or laws about workers' compensation, OSHA. This is about the workplace, if it's safe for you to work. Unemployment compensation, if you're unemployed, we pay into that as taxpayers, so that if you're unemployed, you can collect some funds. And then the Americans with Disabilities Act, we talked about that, I think, a couple of times, making sure that your hiring practices does not discriminate against them. So forth. So if you're disabled or injured, you should have some compensation if you're not able to work. Sometimes it's a fraction of your, maybe 3/4 of your salary while you're injured. And then if they offer you that, you can't sue. You can't say I slipped and fell and they paid me unemployment. I mean, they paid me workers' comp, but I'm suing them. So if you receive workers' compensation, you can't really sue them for slipping and falling on the floors of the organization. OSHA, again, the health of the workers. As workers that use computers primarily, part of OSHA, what they want to do is make sure that you are sitting in ergonomic type of equipment, the chair supporting your back and your legs. I'm going to put that in the chat, ergonom. You're taking regular breaks. The room is well lit and things like that. So OSHA is less stringent on small business as they are on the big businesses. They can fine the big business millions of dollars if they're out of compliance. But it's how the workplace is. Make sure it's safe and comfortable for your employees. Unemployment compensation is where if you lose your job through no fault of your own, that you weren't let go, then you are provided with unemployment compensation while you look for another job. So you pay an unemployment tax as an entrepreneur towards that. And it varies by state and by countries, obviously. The Americans with Disabilities, if you have 15 or more employees, you want to make sure you have access to disabled people, such as ramps and elevators and braille signs, and other special accommodations. Some states have more or less, depending on what their requirements are, but you want to make sure that you are in compliance with ADA. So if you have a family business, again, there are going to be challenges. You want to make sure that you formalize things, put things in writing. Family members, it's going to be difficult. Sometimes if you're the younger sibling and you're hiring somebody that's older than you, you may not, your older sibling might not look upon it too kindly, but it's a business. The personal stuff is set aside, and that's what has to be communicated to that. So think about this in your venture. If you have family members, how you're going to really manage them successfully, and making sure that you keep personal issues out of it as much as possible. So succession planning is if you have a family business, who's going to take it over in the next generation and so forth. You've got to have that in place as well, because you want to put it in place so that there's no dispute about it. It's in writing, it's been said, it's been talked about. So that's it for the HR chapter. Very interesting chapter. Any questions or comments about this chapter before we take our break?
Professor, I have a question. Do in America you have some limitation for foreign labor? I mean, in company, for instance, the company cannot take, let's say, more than 5 foreign employees for 25 local employees or something like this.
Yeah, yeah, and it depends on the company and the state that you're in, where they might have some regulations around that. So there has to
Okay,
be
and
a
mhm.
there has to be like if you have like your out of 100%, only X% can be non-domestic labor,
Okay,
and
and
it's go ahead.
one more question about taxes. If, for instance, I would work in America 5 years, after when I want to go back to my residence country, would can I get some taxes back or not?
I don't know. It would have to do with the state or the country law with that. That differs among countries. That's not something that is a standard set for all countries. It depends.
But in
And we,
America, for local employees and for foreign employees, entrepreneurs should pay the same taxes, isn't it?
I don't know that. I would have to check with our HR because we do have a global company and we have employees from different countries, and I don't know. I'm paying taxes in my own state. That's the taxes that I'm paying. And you would be paying taxes in your own country or your state. I believe that's how it works. It's not like
Okay,
a global tax. It's whatever you're gonna whatever the state law or the country law is. That's what has to apply in your HR practices.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? All right, it's time for our break. I think we settled on 20 minutes last time, so we'll do the same thing today. Actually, let's do 15. Let's come back at 11:30 to make it clean, and then you have more time to work in your teams. So let's do a 15-minute break. At 11:30. And let me get the other teams up and running. All righty, we're back from our break. Do we have any questions before we go into our team rooms to discuss the team questions this week? Anyone have any questions or comments about the topic? Going once. Okay. Okay, so as I mentioned last week, we're going to be presenting our presentations, if you will. And we're going to get some extra time during the team sessions for you to work on recording yourself presenting it. What I would like is to do it live, but I know the time differences are varied. So I think recording yourself is not only good practice for you as a professional, but it's also ensuring that you have that you have contained the data that you have learned. I also wanted to mention that as an MBA student, the program in this country is specifically designed for working adults. So it does take in consideration that you're working professional and you're able to prioritize and you're able to shift and adjust as needed, just like you do on the job. So I want you to look at this course also as an experience in your professional life. How do you prioritize things and get your objectives delivered on time and in good shape and so forth? And how do you deal with shifting objectives, which happens every day on the job? I'll give you an example. The client I'm working with right now is like a $10 million client, software implementation. And we had the schedule and the scope and all that stuff in place for several years. We just started rebaselining the schedule last week. Tremendous lift has to be done, and we've got to do it as professionals. It's a lot of work to do, but we've got to make the adjustment, and we've got to do it in an efficient manner. So this is what life is about as a professional working adult in an MBA program. You are going to have, pulls from all different sides, and you have to be able to prioritize. First of all, your mental health. I always say that. I always say that your mental health is number 1, 2, and 3 priorities. So make sure that that's in place. But you're also being tasked to do things that are going to take you out of your comfort zone. I think a lot of times as adults, we don't want to transform because we're great at things that we do. Let's just do those things. But everyone doesn't have an MBA. It is something to aspire to. It is something that requires significant effort on your part. And so far, you guys have been doing really good, especially the ones that are able to, join in on Sundays and participate in the discussions and ask questions and so forth. You're doing really great. So just continue to do that. And I really appreciate you making the sacrifice to, come to class. I remember I had a class in the B school. It was from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at night. It was 4 hours. And it was 4 hours of just lecturing. So imagine that. Anyway, this is after working all day or maybe flying in and coming straight to class from the airport. So it was very interesting and demanding, but I'm very happy today that I hold an MBA because it does hold sway in the marketplace that you have that. And it's a differentiator. So kudos to you all. So without further ado, let's look at the business plan development questions. I posted it in the chat and I also posted in your team rooms once I release you. This week, you're going to develop an HR plan with the following items: your pay scale plan. So you already have your HR, you got your people in place already. You can do just for those officers, those people within your team, or you can think about hiring outside of that. Okay, you could do that. What kind of benefits you're going to offer, how you're going to advertise the job, and how you're going to interview and hire individuals for that job. Okay, so we're going to come back in this room about 12:45. You have extra time today. So I would like for you to work on your presentation. You should know at this point who's doing what in the presentation. The next topic, just to give you some clarification, is marketing. That's going to be the last topic that has to be included in your plan. So you have a pretty good sense of what needs to be recorded and presented. So determine that in your rooms, who's going to do what, and you could actually start your recording this week. So you have plenty of time to do that aspect of your presentation. Any questions or comments before we move into the team spaces? Any questions or comments?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm confused about the way we are going to present our presentation. So is it to be recorded according to each member availability, or we have to present it in certain time slot in lecture time, and we
Okay.
have to be lively existing, all of us? So
No, we talked about this last week, Noran. So the reason why we're not going to do it live and in the team rooms is because everyone is not available on Sundays at 10 o'clock my time. So what you're going to do is record your part of the presentation at your leisure. Okay, so for example, if you have to do the marketing part, you would just record that aspect of the presentation. And someone else that's doing the HR part, they would record theirs. So you can record it at any time you want. It just has to be submitted as part of the final project.
okay.
Does that make sense? Anyone else have any questions
Yes,
about it?
I have
Sorry, go
further
ahead.
questions, but we can discuss in the room. Yes.
Yeah, so you're just recording it at your own leisure, on your own, time. So that's it. Any other questions? All right. I'm going to release you to your team rooms. We're going to come back in here at approximately 12:45. So you have approximately an hour to work with your teams today.
How many minutes before we come back?
But we'll be back at about 12:45.
Professor, can you help me? I cannot log in to my room.
Okay, let me see if I can help you out with that.
Yeah, so here, okay. I'll join, okay.
All right. Ahmed, are you able to log into your room?
Actually, I'm driving actually, and I have an issue with my Teams Windsor, so I'm entering as a guest. So
Okay,
if you can transfer me to team number 4, yes, please.
what's the name of the team?
International partners.
Okay, I'll add you there. Okay.
Hello, team. I'm driving, so I cannot participate much. Okay.
It's closer for you.
Hello.
Hello, everyone's coming back.
Yes, we're back.
Okay. Let's give you a couple more minutes, a couple more seconds, I should say. Make sure everyone's back. Anyone have any questions or comments about your team activity today?
Yes,
Yes, go ahead.
I am Muhammad. So the interviewing part of the job we were discussing the interviewing parts, okay? We were
Yes.
saying that the interview, usually we have only one employee. So that employee will be the accountant. And the accountant is a technical job where it has to be interviewed by an expert in accounting or someone who knows well this part of the job. So he might be one of the partners, maybe if any one of us knows in this part, or can we ask, for example, any relative or any friend who is experienced enough in this technical part of the job to bring him to do this interview? Is it allowed? Yes. Or so? This is allowed, right?
It's allowed. So that's a good question and a good point, because you want someone that knows how to ask the right questions. Yes. In this specific area, but you also want to look at what your objectives are as leaders in the business, right?
Yes.
So
yes.
It's kind of like a two-part interview, the technical
exactly.
part and then the other part. Yeah.
The HR part. Yes, exactly.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right. So what I shared to you individually in your individual rooms, Next week, what I want to do when I visit you in your rooms is to look at where you are in your presentation. So I know a lot of you have been collecting a lot of data. I see you working really hard, so good job. So I want to see where you are. So make sure that data now is transferred into that template that you've used. I've shown you a template. However, please feel free to use any kind of template that you want to use, as long as it includes the components that we've been discussing in the class. And every week that we've had the lecture, I've told you what needed to be in that business plan. For example, this week there needs to be an HR plan. So I don't care which template you use. Some people like PowerPoint, some like slides from Google and wherever. We just want to make sure that the components of the business plan are, are there. So what I want to do next week when I come to visit you is look at where you are. So put that summary data inside of those templates. I want to be looking at that next week. And as I said to you, next week we're going to be covering marketing, which is the last topic that you'll need for the business plan, the marketing. The last two chapters are kind of like help, advice, that kind of thing for entrepreneurs, which you definitely want to consider. However, it's not a requirement for the business plan. The reason I'm calling it out is because I want to make sure that you have time to kind of work out the things you need to work out in your presentation, because you are going to record your part of the presentation and upload them into the classroom so that you will get that grade. You get that grade for it in addition to your grading each other in that assessment that I submitted maybe a month or so ago. So your grade for the project is going to be what you have done in terms of the presentation and how you're being graded by your constituents, if you will, or your colleagues, not your constituents, your colleagues. So bear that in mind. I have a pretty good idea of what's being done and who's doing what in the team rooms and in the discussions, but I do need your input because I'm not communicating with you. Many of you are meeting, during the week with your team members. That's perfectly fine. That's why we record the sessions. So yeah. Any questions about what's being asked of you in the presentations? Just want to make sure we're clear on that. Any questions? I think I covered them all in your team rooms, but I want to make sure that we bring it to the larger group to see if there anything you may have thought about afterwards. Questions, comments? All right. I know I owe you 5 minutes, so I think I owe you more than that, but I'm gonna go over the individual exercise and then we're gonna break for the day. So the individual exercise, I've posted it in the chat, and of course it's on your assignment, is you're going to can I share this? Do this. Seems like I can't. So you're going to ask an entrepreneur some questions about how they recruit their new employees. What is the turnover among employees? Turnover is when you if you have high or low turnover. For instance, like a retail place such as like a McDonald's restaurant may have high turnover because people come and go, so they have high churn. Whereas, if you're working in a place and you have an accountant, for example, the turnover might not be as high. So some jobs are more stable than others. So you want to find out what the turnover is in the business. How do you go about retaining employees for a long time? So what a question came up in one of the team rooms about compensation and bonuses and recognition and so forth. So how do you compensate, which is more than the money in terms of compensation. It does include the money because that's important, but think about how they should think about how they are retaining their employees. So if they have a long-term employees, ask them, how did you retain them for that length of time? So I would ask a question like, what's the longest amount of time you've had an employee work for you? And they said 30 years. They'd be like, wow, what did you put in place to make sure that they remain engaged for this amount of time? And then finally, do they employ family members? Why or why not? So these are great questions to ask an entrepreneur for your individual assignment this week. Any questions or comments about that ask? Questions, comments? Going once? Twice? Okay. We're going to break for the day. Of course, I'm available.
Professor.
Yes.
I know you finished going once and twice. Can I make a last bid?
Yes, go ahead.
The late assignments. I will send you by WhatsApp better.
Yes. Yeah, send me by
Thank
WhatsApp.
you.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions or comments?
Do we have assignment this week?
Yeah, the individual assignment that we have weekly.
Oh, okay.
That's the one I just covered. So yeah, any other questions or comments? All right, well, you enjoy the rest of your day, evening. Have a great week ahead. And I think some of you are celebrating Holy. Enjoy the fasting and the commitment to that and all the different colors. And I really like what Holy represents, but I won't be fasting. But enjoy the week, and I'll see you either on WhatsApp or I'll see you next Sunday. We're almost there. We're coming down to the wire. So keep doing a great job. Bye, all.
Bye, everybody. Happy
Bye.
Sunday.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye, sir.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Professor, I have a very fast thing.
Yeah.
Mention
Yes.
that as my colleagues explained at the beginning, that we are going to be fasting at the started from Thursday. So our the time we use to eat will be at the section of discussion from the session.
Okay.
So we might so we might have some struggling. We will try our best to be there.
I understand.
But forgive us if we
I totally understand.
Thanks
if you're
for
not
your
able
understanding. Thank you.
Yeah. If you're not able to, of course, we have the recordings for you. So yeah, I totally get it.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome, and Godspeed with that, okay?
Thank you.
All
Have
right.
a nice week.
Thank you. You do the same. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.